Hello, everyone, and welcome to PCR's January Tips and Virtual Transition Times meeting. My name is Melissa Wyman, and I am PCR's Respite Care and Community Engagement Director. I will be your moderator this evening, so please feel free to send any questions or comments in the chat box below. We are so excited to be collaborating with Montgomery County Public Schools Transition Services Unit to provide an enhanced transition times programs for transitioning youth, their families, and caregivers. We are delighted to offer this presentation with American Sign Language simultaneous interpretation. We will also be offering this presentation with Spanish simultaneous interpretation. The English and Spanish language versions will be archived on the PCR website Transition Times page. Just some Zoom tip reminders. We are using the webinar platform. We will wait for questions at the end of the presentation, but feel free to submit any of your questions in the chat box below. Click Show Captions to see the captions for the webinar. You must select the speaking language you would like to show. We are very fortunate tonight to have Sean Latanzio, Program Manager to Child and Adolescent Coordinator, Montgomery County Local Behavioral Health Authority, and Alex Dudley, Director, Transition Age Youth Services from Cornerstone, Montgomery. Sean?
Thank you. Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Sean Latanzio with Montgomery County Local Behavioral Health Authority. Melissa? And I'm the Local Behavioral Health Authority is we're under Montgomery County government and we're part of Department of Health and Human Services. That's our larger organization. And then under that is Behavioral Health Management and Crisis Services. And then we're the Local Behavioral Health Authority. Our charge is to oversee the public mental health services in Montgomery County. And that's behavioral health and mental health services. We work with a variety of contractors and we have in the state and the county, and for a lot of providers that provide mental health and substance use services to our constituents in the county. Next slide. My role, like I said, is working with children and adolescents and their families. And sometimes it's really hard to really assess when you might need additional mental health service. I know a lot of times families therapy is usually the first avenue to go to, but sometimes children and teens need more than just therapy sessions. Sometimes they have significant trauma histories and they need more support and services to be able to manage their lives at home and school. And sometimes parents and caregivers have problems accessing resources, so we find ways to help them access resources. Sometimes parent and caregivers have their own mental health or substance use needs, and that sometimes inhibits them getting services for their children and teens. And also parents need support, and that's one thing some of our services can help support parents through the process of finding behavioral health services for their children. Next slide. And we're going to talk about today community programs for children and youth with serious emotional disabilities. Now, serious emotional disabilities can be a wide range, and I work with a wide range of children, and sometimes it's the emotionality piece is what we're going to be talking about today, not developmental disabilities per se, but what the emotional piece and how that emotional piece can be interfering with their daily lives. Next slide, please. And some of the services we have for children who have serious emotional disabilities kind of start, and this is for children with all disabilities, for children with developmental disabilities, intellectual disabilities, emotional disabilities, can go to what we call the local care team. And the local care team is run by our local management board in Montgomery County, who is the Collaboration Council. And what they do is a local care team. Every jurisdiction in the state of Maryland has a local care team. And in Montgomery County, with the child serving agencies comprise of what the local care team is in Montgomery County, and that includes Child Welfare Services, Department of Juvenile Justice Services. Montgomery County Public Schools has a representative. Child Welfare has a representative. We are represented. I currently chair the committee, as well as we have a family voice through the Federation. And so and the Collaboration Council has a voice through the local management board. And we meet every Wednesday, and there's a state universal referral form, and we review the referrals. One of the things the LCT can help family, and the Developmental Disabilities Administration also has a representative at the team. I think that's important to note. One of the things we do with the LCT is we get the referrals and we meet with families. Usually every Wednesday we have a docket set up, and we receive the referrals. The referrals give us information on the child or the youth, and we're sometimes at this meeting able to brainstorm for services for this child. We're able to kind of see what behavior needs they may have, what kind of services they're receiving now, what additional care coordination or management needs they may need, if they need additional resources in the community. We try to assist with that. So we brainstorm. And sometimes one of the services that you can really only get through the local care team is called wraparound services. And right now, Jewish Social Service Agency can provide wraparound services if you meet the eligibility criteria. All these services, there's kind of like an eligibility criteria. But wraparound is not what you think. It's not a 24/7 service. It's usually once a week care coordination service where it's kind of like case management, but they help families set up for additional services. They help them locate services. They have them navigate services. They also help them navigate the school system if there's some concerns or issues. Okay, next kind of slide, please. Another service we have is another kind of step up for community services, interagency family preservation service. Again, this is a short-term program. And wraparound is one of our longer programs. All the services, when you look at mental health, behavioral health and mental health services, they're really short term. They go in and they try to treat the need, and then they move on and they kind of discharge, or they might discharge to a lesser step of services. But family preservation services, kind of our middle of the road, where families need a little more support. It's a holistic family model. It's a 14-week program, and they provide a care coordinator that can come in the home, do some family development. They can look for therapeutic services. They work based on identified risk factors. And through this process, both with this service, there's no insurance needs. There's no insurance requirements. And this service, as well as wraparound, families do not pay for the services. So those are important things. So they're open to all children. Again, you can get this through the LCT, or if you're interested in these services, a lot of them you can contact me and I can help do the referral forms for you. Next service. Okay. Another big service we have is the 1950I state amendment, and we have targeted case management plans. Targeted case management are primarily for children who have medical assistance. And this is where you have a care coordinator that can
Dawn,
help. Yes.
sorry, do you mind just speaking a little slower
Okay.
for the
All right. I was
interpreter?
trying to slow down. I saw the little cue.
Okay, thank you so much.
I'm trying to slow down. I'm thinking slowing down at the same time, like I said. Okay. The 1950I state plan, amendment plan, and targeted case management is another service that I can help you with referrals, and referrals can come to me. And we have two providers. We have Advanced Behavior Health, and we have Volunteers of America. And this is a targeted case management program. And what this is families and their children, identified children, can get services and support. They can help identify additional services. They can help be a mentor help you find mentors, help you with school services. And these services can be anywhere from 3 to 15 hours a month. And they have an eligibility scale of what kind of services and how much services you can receive for these supports. And so what we can do is we can help, again, targeted case management is primarily for medical assistance, but they do now have a particular program for children who have commercial insurance or do not have any insurance. We have targeted case management plus. So any family can receive a targeted case management service coordinator. They just have to go through the referral system, which I can assist with the referrals. Next, is that good, rate? All right, next slide, please. Probably our highest level of service is care and connections for families, and it's an intensive in-home crisis stabilization service. Shepherd Pratt Family Services is the organizer for this program. Most of the services in the child adolescent world serve children generally under the age of 17, usually 5 through 17 and to 18. And this service provides intensive in-home crisis services for children. It also helps stabilize children so they don't need a psychiatric hospitalization. They under Care and Connections for families who receiving this service, they receive an in-home stabilization worker to help kind of help with and a therapist who helps set up a plan to help maintain that child in the home. It's a short-term program of about anywhere from about 8 to 12 weeks. Again, they go into the help. The goal is to stabilize the crisis so that the child doesn't need to be hospitalized. And like I said, with that comes in a therapist and an in-home stabilization worker. They work with the family to see what resources may be out there. They also provide a lot of safety planning and discharge planning as well. And again, this is an interesting program because you can get it through the crisis center. Our crisis center, as you know, is a 24/7, 365-day facility in Rockville. And they can make recommendations or referrals to Care and Connections for families. I can too make crisis referrals to Care and Connections for families on a case-by-case basis. But this is for children who need to have intensive behavioral health needs. All right, next slide. This is for, I'm going to kind of briefly go over this, but I can also assist with making referrals. And this is usually children in 6th grade to about 11th grade who have an IEP with a social emotional disability code on it. And this is the RICA evaluation unit, and they can provide a more intensive, deep down educational, psychological, and psychiatric social testing. And they do it in a diagnostic residential environment on the RICA campus. It's a 90-day evaluation. And after that, a 90-day evaluation is done. They provide a treatment plan, outline treatment services, and they also outline what services will be best meet the child. Sometimes the children may need higher level of care. Sometimes they need lower level of care. I can submit community referrals to the RICE evaluation unit. It does require a clinical letter. Right now, they used to just be a psychologist, but now they are requiring a clinical letter from a psychologist and a psychiatrist or your social worker. It's a very small program, and it only is, like I said, it's 90 days, but they only have 8 beds. And we're looking at statewide. So oftentimes they have waiting list of about 2 months in order to get into the RICE evaluation unit. Okay. All right, next slide, please. Residential treatment centers, which is probably our highest level. Again, children have to meet a medical necessary criteria. We have residential treatment centers, about 5 of them across the state. Some serve just males and some are co-ed and serve male and females. A pretty high threshold for a admission process. A certificate of need or a con is required. And I do have a PowerPoint that really drills down on what the documents need for admissions into an RTC. And RTCs are generally a lengthy process. I can help with referrals, but a psychiatrist is the only one who can make the recommendation for a residential treatment center. Residential treatment centers in the state have lengthy waiting lists, and they do take time to get placed in there, and they are not emergency placements. And generally, we do have one that serves St. Vincent Village serves young children, the elementary school age, and generally they go up to middle school and high school, but the cutoff age is usually 17 and a half. Next slide, please. We also provide substance use treatment for youth, and I have a list of here of different substance use providers. We provide substance use as kind of it's broken down to like levels, and like level 1 is 0.05. It's psychoeducation on substance use. That is unfortunately not paid by most commercial insurances or medical assistance, but Suburban Hospital does provide psychoeducation and a level 1 outpatient treatment services. A lot of these outpatient substance use treatments have kind of a hybrid now. We do have Journeys, which does do intensive outpatient, but a lot of it is virtual. They do either in-person, a combination of in-person and virtual for their treatments. A lot of them are after-school programs. Sandstone and Newport Academy and Embark and Congruent do take private insurance. Congruent does take medical assistance now. So you can see, when I say Medicaid medical assistance, it's kind of the same thing, but they all provide a variety of, inpatient, outpatient or psychoeducation. We do have a new residential treatment program for substance use for youth. It's out in Baltimore. It used to be Mountain Manor, and we reopened it up, and it serves children statewide. It's a residential substance use, part detox and part residential treatment for substance youth. And that we can get, even though it's outside Baltimore area, it's associated with Maryland Treatment Centers, and we do have transportation to that facility if it is deemed necessary. But again, getting to substance use, you can do also direct referrals for substance use treatment for children. But primarily adolescents, usually it's age 12 to about on up. Okay, next. Transition age youth, I'm not going to really go into this too deeply because I know we have Cornerstone here, and Cornerstone is one of our transition youth providers. And they do a residential rehab programs and also PRP, psychiatric rehab programs. But I'm going to let Alex talk about that. So we'll skip this slide. We do still have mental health services for adults, and a lot of times our entrance point for mental health services for adult is our access team, and they can do screening for mental health and substance use. And our access team can also identify resources, they can make referrals, they can do assessments, they can do a whole bunch of, and they can also make a variety of referrals. And they do have a targeted case management in the adult where they never wrap around, but they do have targeted case management for adults. And I do have the contact number there. Okay. And let's see, one more. And this is real important. I bring this up everywhere. 988, which is our suicide and crisis lifeline. It's also, you can call it for if you're not only that, but if you have gambling issues, substance use issues, of just feeling depressed or financial issues. It is a all-around lifeline to help individuals who are in emotional distress. And 988 is a very simple number. It's 24/7, 365 days a year, and they can provide families, individuals. I get the data on them all the time, but serve children as young as 12 or 8 have called the 988 when they've been in an emotional crisis. Okay, next one. And these are some important resource links. We have our Be the One, which is another type of, it's a referral information, but again, it's on mental health and substance use, and they're very important resource links. And I also have our disability directory there. And I think when you get the PowerPoint, you can open up the links. I don't want to take too much time on it because that will take more time, and I want Alex to have a chance to present. All right, next slide. And again, here's some more different resource links, everything from Info Montgomery. We also have this first one, Behavioral Health Resource Guide. It's a 70-page live document, and that can provide you with updated resource information, everything from therapists to outpatient treatment services, also things of clothing services, financial services, all that other type of stuff. And then I also put in here always Psychology Today, because sometimes they can provide, if you're looking for a specific type of therapist or psychologist or psychiatrist, they can zeroes down onto anywhere from what type of insurance you have, what type of, if it's trauma-based, services for individuals with developmental or intellectual disabilities. Sometimes they have psychiatrists who have very specific specializations, and you can find out where they are in the county or in the state. Next again. All right, and here's my information. Like I said, I pretty much work virtually, but I am most available by email. And that is my contact information. I believe you also were receiving a set of these slides. Thank you.
Yes, they will. So all of the PowerPoints were sent, and for any reason you did not receive a PowerPoint, please let me know, and I will be happy to resend the PowerPoints that include both Sean and Alex's. All right, so now I'm just going to stop sharing, and then I'm going to get Alex set up, and then we can start.
I'll do a quick introduction while you get that pulled up, Melissa. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Alex Dudley. I'm the Transition Age Youth Director for Cornerstone Montgomery. We recently celebrated 50 years, a couple of years ago, of serving the mental health population in Montgomery County. Historically, most of our services have been aimed at serving an adult population. But over the last 10 years or so, we've really expanded and improved our services to what we refer to as transition age youth. This is a Sean was referring to an age group that was a little bit younger, 5 to 17, 18. Because we are an adult mental health agency, we're allowed to go a little bit younger than that, but it is an adult styled service. So our programs are aimed at folks as young as 16, but we really tried to partner with the schools and expand services to that 16 to 18, 19 population, because we saw such a need as individuals were exiting high school to be connected in some way with mental health services. So that is why we have increased our staffing and our capacity to serve this population. It's why I try to come to meetings like this to let people know that as individuals are leaving high school, there are services and programs for people that want to get some support in navigating from the mental health supports that our school systems provide and transferring into the adult world of mental health services. You can hit the next slide for me, Melissa. I used to do a mental health first aid training, and one of the stats that stuck with me, the most eye-opening stat that stuck with me from that, was that on average, after a mental health diagnosis, people wait on average 10 years to seek professional supports. And in that 10 years, a lot of negative things can happen to an individual. We used to have a team that served people as young as 18 into their 26, 27, 28 years. And we just decided that wasn't cutting it in terms of really doing outreach to a younger population and establishing a connection with people while they were still really being supported by their educational teams. But also just to have that warm handoff in between services, and really make them comfortable seeking out continued services as they transition to adulthoods. The way that we do that most often is through our vocational teams. Vocational teams are two teams that are primarily focused on helping people identify, explore, and obtain permanent competitive employment in the community. That really is the only criteria that we have to kind of be referred to these teams, is that you are eligible for services under the public mental health system, which is one of those at this age range. It's typically one of those social emotional diagnoses that Sean was talking about earlier. Or it can be any mental health diagnosis that's considered a priority population in the state of Maryland. And the other criteria is that you're interested, at 16, 17, 18 years old, a junior and senior in high school. We like to start working with people as young as second semester juniors, because that really is, earlier than that, it's really, you're focused on school. You might be looking for a summer job, but younger than that is really too young to be engaging in this kind of rehab work. But second semester junior, we've got a summer job. We're going to finish up our senior year, and then we're going to get into the workforce. It's a perfect time to refer your child or your student to our program. And this time of year, I always try to get into as many of these meetings as I can, because May is going to be here before we know it. And it does take a while to get people into services. We do also require a psychiatrist's referral with just a qualifying diagnosis. So our intake team will help you through that process. But it does take a minute. So if you have somebody that might benefit from our services, please start that ball rolling now. All my contact information is on the last slide. And I'm always happy to talk with people. But our vocational services specifically are really the earliest element of support, where we can start working with individuals. We really want to be looking for part-time work while folks are still in high school, maybe a Saturday job for a couple of hours, just to get people started in that world of what does it mean to have to report to a boss, to be on time somewhere, to, disagree with somebody that isn't my teacher or my parents, but can have a different kind of repercussion in my life. So we really try to help people navigate those early experiences, and help people start on that track to success. Next slide for me, please. I spoke briefly about the first principle here, but I'd like to throw this up. These are our core principles for our vocational services. It really does come down to consumer choice, which is difficult in this age range sometimes when a lot of families that I work with or have worked with in the past are just reach out and say, hey, they need something. And right now, this is the only thing that I can find. They might be 17 years old. A lot of the programs that Sean discussed earlier are great supports in that kind of stopgap, short-term time until they get a little bit older. But we really do talk with people about, do you want to work? Is this a service that we really can provide to you? We can't do the work without the buy-in from the individual. And that really is the most important piece. The rest of these are just kind of, it sounds kind of corny to say cornerstones of what we do. But we, I can't talk right now, sweetie. You got to go upstairs. Sorry. All of these are just, part of the expectation that the state has of us in doing this work, and how we approach providing services to individuals. Next slide for me. So I do like to include a little bit of specific information about our high school team, because I know that's the target audience here. We really want to really engage with people at least as early as their senior year. At the very beginning, I understand that we are going to get referrals where maybe mom and dad said, hey, you need to go do this. Or maybe a counselor said, hey, this is going to be a good service for you. We get individuals all the time at 16, 17 years old that will tell us, I don't want a job right now. My philosophy on that, I need you to want to be interested in working, period. Kind of, big picture interest. We do a lot of exploration. We do a lot of interest inventories and actual community outreach to, do informational interviews with different kinds of careers and things like that. But they do need to be at least interested in engaging with us in some sort of job search process. We also can provide what's referred to as PRP services, psych rehab services. That is more of a, daily life skills. I need help kind of learning about managing my medication or travel routes around the county to build independence, or as people age out of living with their parents, it might look like budgeting, meal planning, things like that. That is also a service that people are eligible for on this team once they hit 18. We do not provide that for individuals under 18, but once people hit 18, we can also kind of supplement this team with those services as well. We also do everything we can to really coordinate closely with anybody at the school that is engaged in the individual's rehabilitation or support and service. So part of our role and an expectation of our staff is that we are on a monthly basis reaching out and coordinating with anybody that the individual on our program deems as a natural support. So it could be parents, it could be counselors, it could be a therapist, it could be, we don't use many best friends because I try to get a little bit more adult involvement than that. But all of that is something that we bring into consideration when we are providing services. Next slide, please. We also have a young adult team that continues providing these services. This is an ongoing support. We have no expectation that the first job somebody gets when they're 18, 19 years old is going to be the last job they ever get. We're very invested in helping people grow, using one job to get the next job, to get a promotion, to get the next job. And that is a part of the expectation of our staff and of our consumers, of everybody that works with us. So we do kind of age people from one team to the next after a couple years, but that really is a pretty long process. I just add this information in here for this group of people because I do like to point out that people can stay in this kind of orbit of teams specifically focused on this transitionary age group until they're 26, 27, 28 sometimes, really depending what services they're getting and what they need from us. But we do really tailor these services under the assumption and the idea that life is not the same at 19 as it is at 40. And just because you are in, quote unquote, adult services now, you need very specialized support, and you have very specialized obstacles and barriers and things about the world that you're trying to figure out. So they can stay in our transition age youth programs for quite a number of years while we kind of work through that. I will say that this team, if you get referred to us after you've already left high school, maybe a referral comes in from a counselor in May or June or July. Maybe they graduate and they're at home with mom and dad, or mom or dad or auntie or whoever, and they say, we thought we were going to be okay. We're not okay. We do need these supports you talked about. They would be referred to our CAPS team directly. And that is just because the other team has the expectation that they're going to work with the school system and have that additional element of communication involved. The service itself typically looks like one meeting per week. It could be more in the job search phase where people are just on the cusp of getting something or interviewing or something like that. But typically we try to see everybody at least once a week and really keep the ball rolling. We are going to, meet you where you're at in terms of your engagement and excitement about the job search. So if you tell me you want to see me 3 times a week, I might ask for 2, but we want to meet your engagement and really strike while the iron's hot. Motivation comes and goes at this age, and we want to be cognizant of that as well. All right, next slide, please. All right. I mentioned our PRP supports that started at 18. I do want to touch on that briefly as well, because once individuals at whatever point they age out of high school or graduate or move on from that really supportive all-day environment, there can be a drop-off in kind of the, what do I do now? What am I doing not only with work, but with everything else? So we do encourage everybody that is eligible and needs that level of additional support to join this program as well. It is something that we started. We can't accept people into this program until they're 18, but it is a newer team in the last 3 years that we started because we realized that kids need support and not all of them want to work. And previously, the only way into these transition age youth services was through that vocational angle where at Cornerstone Montgomery, I should say, not in the county, but in our agency, the only way in was through that vocational angle. And we had kids that would say, like, look, I understand that I need this kind of thing in my life, but I don't want to find a job right now. I've got too much going on. Life is too hard. I've got too much other stuff to figure out. So we created this other team where you do not need to, you don't need to want to work. If that is not an immediate goal for you right now, we can still support you on this team. We do just have to wait until you turn 18. Which hopefully is around that senior year timeframe anyways. But if you have somebody that you're considering referring to any of our programs, I love getting phone calls from counselors, parents. Hey, this is the situation. What should we refer to? I'm happy to have those conversations. Next slide, please. So this is really just a list of the types of things that we do with folks. We start exploring adult benefits for various benefits they may qualify for now that they're 18 and qualify for adult services. A lot of times we help people with budgeting, meal planning and cooking education if they're living on their own or living with mom and dad. We really encourage any adult that they're living with to let them start doing some of that cooking. Also, we see a lot of individuals in our services that tell us that they're interested in social skill development. We run groups. We will kind of put out a month or not that far, 2 weeks ahead of time. We'll say, hey, we're doing a, Dungeons and Dragons group next Thursday. Anybody that wants to do that, come on down. And you'll have a thing to talk about with people and do some of that social skill development. We also really help kind of advance people's understanding of what it means to advocate for yourself in a clinical sense when we're talking about some of that psychoeducation. As you graduate into these adult services, it really is like any other doctor. Most of the time you walk in and they might have 5, 10, 15 minutes for you. And it's on you to say, this is my problem. This is what med is doing. This is what the med isn't doing. So we do a lot of that work with individuals too. When they're not doing well, we help them advocate for themselves. And often we will help partner them with a natural support or one of our staff that can go with them to one of those clinical meetings with a doctor to help them kind of advocate for themselves until they're used to doing it on their own. Next slide, please. All right, Sean mentioned our residential program. Go ahead. We do have a small residential program as well. We've got 12 beds that are considered intensive residential rehab beds in the county. They are reserved for individuals without stable housing with a severe and persistent mental illness. All of those applications do go through the LBHA, as Sean mentioned earlier. But as we get those referrals in, we have essentially, it's a large box of a building. It's 6 separate apartments that are 2-bedroom apartments. We have the basement area reserved for staff, community, kitchen, community room kind of thing. We got a computer lab down there, but somebody is on site 24 hours a day to provide supports. When individuals move into that with us, a lot of times we are helping with the budgeting again. We're helping with independent meal planning, cooking, same kind of things. But typically the individuals we see are on their own or have limited family involvement. We do occasionally see very involved parents, which is wonderful. And we, certainly welcome that as well. But it is a, residential program for adults with pretty intense needs. The application process, the application itself for all of these programs is on our website. You can click the Apply for Services tab. I think I've got a slide at the end with all that information as well. So, but that is a countywide application that's not unique to Cornerstone Montgomery. Next slide, please. We also have youth and adolescent clinical services provided in our clinic. I was just talking with our chief medical officer today about this because I was like, give me an update on where we are and what we're offering here. We do offer, we're accepting individuals aged 12 to 18 currently for therapy only. Our insurances that we accept are Medicaid, Medicare, or commercial Cigna, CareFirst, BCBS, or Optum. We do have a limited number of bilingual prescribers and therapists, but we also have the means to provide translation support for encounters if those are needed as well. So that is the availability for clinical services to the younger age group. Anybody that comes into our programs that I've been talking about would be referred to our adult psychiatrists, therapists, if they were seeking clinical services from Cornerstone Montgomery and weren't electing to stay with a current provider or anybody they've been seeing. Next slide, please. I want to leave some time for questions here, so I will wrap up quickly. Here's our website. More information about all of our services is on there. Like I said, find the services tab on the top menu bar. You'll get a description of all of our programs. Direct link is there as well. Next slide, I think it's just my phone number. Like I said, I'm the director. Our program manager, Molly Brado, comes with me to a lot of these kinds of things. She's also a lovely person to talk to. So call, email both of us, either one of us. We'll be happy to talk to you about what we can do to help. And I believe that's all I have here.
All right. Thank you. All right. That was great. So, one, I just wanted to let anyone know that has not received the PowerPoints, if you can send me a message and just send your email so I can confirm I have your email. That way I can send it out. And then if anybody has any questions, I have a few in the chat, but we can also have you, if you would like to ask a question, you can raise your hand and then I can have you have the ability to speak so you can ask a question. Okay, so the one question we have, or the first question we have is, if I currently have a sophomore in high school with autism, should I start now? This sounds like a wonderful program for my son.
So I assume that question was aimed at me. Our supports are all under the behavioral health umbrella and not the DDA funding umbrella, which means that for anybody coming or referred to services with us, the behavioral health diagnosis needs to be the primary diagnosis. We see a lot of young adults with co-occurring autism diagnoses and mental health diagnoses. Our supports are structured differently than supports for people on the autism spectrum, not in a massive way, but it is a different approach. And in those cases, it's really important to work with your psychiatrist or your whoever is kind of talking you through that diagnosis, to ask them if the mental health diagnosis is the more impactful side of the disability. Our services are not available for somebody that is only diagnosed with autism. However, we do serve people with co-occurring diagnoses. It's just a kind of a medical determination on which side of the support structure that you would be referred to. Sean, do you have any other comments on that?
No, you're correct on some of the LBHA programs. The only thing is with the local care team, in that, we do have Development Disabilities Administration that sits on that, but that's primarily they would provide information on services that would best benefit the individual with a developmental or intellectual disability. So, but we do work with DDA to a certain extent, but it really is going to be where the primary disability falls, which what Alex said, where the
Okay. Does anyone have any additional questions or would like to raise their hand and ask a question? How long does it usually take to start services?
for Alex's, for Cornerstone or for services in general?
Both. So services in general.
Alex, you want to go first?
Sure. We have people that yell at us all the time when we're not fast enough. So we try to be as quickly as possible, as quick as possible. It really depends on the information that you have collected prior to applying. We do see a lot of applications come in without diagnostic information, without a therapist listed, without a doctor listed. And we do need to reach out and collect records from those individuals. So the more thorough you can be, the more the quicker we can bring somebody in.
For my side, it really depends upon what services you're looking for. For targeted case management, we can sometimes get that fairly quickly. But some of our higher level services like residential treatment or evaluation diagnostic placements, those do take time. And that does take a long time, given the fact that there are waiting lists and the capacity is an issue with some of the residential facilities and locations. And I just saw the next question in the chat about DDA braided services. Where is it? This is an interesting question. Because you all know that my previous history, I did for 20 years, I worked with DDA and transitioning youth. And so they are two separate worlds because they really do serve, the service, the delivery of service is very different in the DDA world and in the behavioral health world. And the staffs are trained very differently in both worlds as well. So it really depends upon what service and what we usually do is we consult with DDA. If there's certain things, or they consult with us if they feel there's a type of services that might be able to help the individual. Again, a lot of times, except for residential services, those you primarily usually have to go to a DDA provider because the delivery model is much more intense and can provide more hands-on opportunity than one of the services in the adult world. And that includes TAY services, even though it says they're 24/7. It's not the hands-on services that you get in the DDA world. You don't have staff that will cook for individuals, and the PRP and the RRPs and the behavioral health world.
Sean, real quick, somebody's asking what DDA means. So if you,
Oh, sure. DDA
yes.
is Developmental Disabilities Administration. It primarily focuses to serve individuals with developmental and intellectual disabilities. It's a state organization. They can serve individuals from 0 to adult seniors. Behavioral health is combined mental health and substance use. And again, that is another word that is we're all under Department of Mental Health and Hygiene, but we have different ways of delivering services to the individuals who have very specific diagnoses. Wouldn't you say the best way to look at that, Alex? Yeah.
I think you put it great. I like to explain our services as we're trying to work ourselves out of a job, and we're trying to do it as rapidly as possible. We're trying to go out with you once, do it with you, go out with you a second time and watch you do it yourself, and send you out on your own the third time. Obviously, it doesn't work that rapidly hardly ever. But that is the progression that is expected in my world of services. Is really we're teaching you the independence so that you can go and do on your own. Whereas that's not necessarily the case with DDA services.
Right. DDA services can be, in my services, a lot of time are long term. DDA can provide a lifetime of services. In our world, it's generally short term, a few years, or even up to a few months, or even a few weeks, if we're going to treat the critical need that's presenting at that point in time, if it's a crisis situation.
Okay, thanks. So the next question is, what's the recommended steps for a high schooler with autism diagnoses that starts having psychotic episodes?
Good question. I work a lot with, I sometimes sit on a variety of committees. I know sometimes individuals who have autism and are having psychiatric episodes sometimes sit in hospitals for a period of time in order to find the right clinical service that can meet their need. And we have very few of them that can find that psychiatric piece and that piece to really work on the developmental disability or the autism piece. Yet there are more services growing. We do some work. There are sometimes some joint work with Brookline and which is actually a provider out of Hagerstown, does some work with DD individuals and they have some psychiatric respite care for individuals with developmental disabilities and psychiatric needs. It's a tough finding that care piece has been a challenge, and we're trying to do more cooperative work. I've been in some meetings because this is it's an unmet need, and it's a concern, and we are working at better ways to work with this, to work with individuals who have that, psychotic needs as well, who's psychotic and may have, and has autism, because it really requires very specific individuals that have that specific training to meet all those requirements to really to really benefit for treatment. I wish I had a better answer for you, because I see it as a gap, but the state is working on to identify better resources for this population.
Yeah, they said he's rejected by first clinics in Maryland due to autism diagnoses.
And it happens. Um, there is, how old is he? He's a sophomore. You said he was a high schooler?
Yes.
Uh, um, I'm trying to think. If I think of one, Melissa, I'm going to email you. I have to do it.
Okay.
I saw something where there was a group was going to do this population. One of the individual things we get, I get people doing a certain service, and then they say, oh, we're going to do the service, and they don't get enough people to do it to get reimbursed by Medicaid or insurances, so they stop doing the service. So that's why I think it's probably one of those unmet needs out there. But we can see if there is other clinics that can serve him.
Okay, great. And then this is a question for you, Sean. If the services are for crisis, not a lifetime, do people usually return for services if they do not need it for some time? And if they do they need to start the process again, or is there like a record of
You
when they were there?
you talk about high utilizers, and that's kind of a term we use in the behavioral health world of individuals who come back. You are going to have people who return, who may have a new crisis, who may have had something else happen, a new trauma, a new experience that has been a challenge for them to handle. But people can continue to get, therapy can be a lifetime thing. Sometimes people get new therapists because they may meet the maximum benefit of one therapist, but there are different, you can go back. I mean, people do come back. It's not that we say it's not a lifetime. I think sometimes the situation changes, the crisis changes. The individual may have a different set of needs when they go into this service, but therapy can be an ongoing, you know, service that an individual can use. And some people need different types of therapy because maybe they maximize, there's all different kinds of therapies out there that can serve individuals. And I'm sure Alex can better answer that too as well.
Yeah, I think a lot of the programs that Sean was talking about earlier as shorter term programs, also a part of that care is identifying people that might need some of those longer term supports and providing appropriate referrals. I talk with a lot of different referral sources, people looking for more stable long term care, care and support for somebody. I certainly don't think of our services as a short term service. Um, it would be great if they were, if we got somebody a job and they said, all right, I'm good from here, see you later. But people typically don't want that. And a lot of times people need continued coaching. I would have probably been a lot more successful if I had a job coach from 18 to 25. So, we really like to grow with people and use some of the life lessons that all of us learn along the way as room for growth, to really, stay with people and, create that upward trajectory. Yeah, I don't think of any of our services as short term, though we love it when they are. Sometimes they
But
are.
I mean, short term, it's like our crisis services maybe for 4 to 8 weeks at the particular crisis. And suicide ideation can be cyclical for individuals. And so, particularly in adolescence, certain things they can be explosive for 1 week, and they could have a bad week with their friends, and they can be highly suicidal. And the next week, their friends group is back. So it's can be everything, particularly with adolescents, because they can be impulsive, they can be, you know, with social media, there's a lot of issues and concerns.
All right. Yes, thank you so much. So, any last questions before we wrap it up, or any last things you'd like to share, Alex or Sean?
I think there's one more question.
Oh, how can I get a job coach for my son if his needs are autism intellectual diagnosis?
Well, you can go through Doors. Doors provides, Doors services, Division of Rehabilitation Services. And DDA, when you get to DDA services, part of their day programs does provide job coaching. And they use from back in the world, I think Margie and Pat can get a list, but I think Jewish Social Service Agency used to provide job coaches. There's a whole list of providers in the DDA world that DDA gives them money to provide job coaching services for, so that the individual can have a meaningful job when they are in adult services. And Doors can help work with them too. Doors has some programs even for younger adolescents. I think it's something to work. I forget what it's called, not Ticket to Work, but something along that line, just for adolescents. But yes, both those agencies can assist with job coaching.
Okay, thank you so much. Um, any last thoughts? Anything to share? Okay, perfect. And just a reminder for everyone. First, thank you so much, Sean and Alex, for your informative presentations. You have so much knowledge, and it's great to have you both be here and share. They both sent their contacts, and it's on the PowerPoint. So if you have any specific questions, please feel free to out to Alex and Sean. And just looking ahead, we have a special time for our upcoming Transition Times Tips meeting. Please join us on Tuesday, February 4th at 6:30 for this month's program, Guardianship and Supported Decision Making. And this webinar will feature Daniel Cardall, Supervising Attorney, Montgomery County Circuit Court Family Law Self-Help Center, and Sandy Balin, Attorney Disability Rights Maryland. All right. Thanks so much and have a wonderful evening, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.